She loved the outdoors, and she was a reader, Grandma Zoe. She was a reader, and she was smart. And she only went to the, I don't know what, I guess the 8th grade.
Right.
And, but she, she was more aware of things that were going on, and she took National Geographic. She was interested in she was interested in things. And she knew a lot about nature and farming.
And Dad knew her too, right?
Yes. She died when I was living in Gallup, so he was in college when she died.
Maybe I'm just misremembering this, but was it her or somebody else somebody told me the story of her almost accidentally shooting her husband at night or something like that?
I never heard that.
Nah, it must be something else.
I don't know who that was.
Or who was it that told me the story of...
But I never knew Grandma to have a gun or use a gun.
Who was it that told me the story of both their parents being moonshiners? Was it Pop? No, can't be.
Oh, now Pop's dad was a moonshiner, I heard, at least for a while. And when I went to the lumber store one time in Kingsport, and I had a plan from a book to make an inkle loom, and I wanted to learn to weave, and it's a small loom that's easy to learn on, I've been told. I never did use it, but so when I went over there, I was talking to the guy, and I showed him the plan, and I told him, that I was trying to build one, and he looked at it and he said, "Oh, I'll make you one of those." And we got to talking, and he knew Henry Barnett.
Wow.
And he said, "Oh, yeah, I knew him. He was an old moonshiner." And I said, "Well, I thought he was a carpenter." That's what Pop told me. And he said, "Oh, he was a carpenter. I worked with him." And that's how I met him. And he said, but he was a moonshiner. And I went home and I asked Daddy, I said, I was talking to this man at the lumber store, and he said, he knew your dad, and he said that he was a moonshiner. Is that true? And Pop said, yeah, he did a little bit of moonshining.
That's funny. Maybe that's why Pop always had a little bit of an affinity for making the homemade wine.
Maybe. But Pop didn't like to talk about, I tried to ask Daddy questions several times about ancestry and, our forebears, and just to get family history.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that.
And, most Southerners
talk about that.
They tell stories about their ancestors and pass them down for generations.
But Pop did not.
He would not talk about it. He said, be careful what you ask for. He said, you might find out something you don't want to know. And so I don't know what it was. I don't know if there was something. It sounds like there was something he knew about that he didn't think we needed to know.
Right. Does, yeah.
Or, I don't know.
Was it?
Or maybe he was just like that, because hillbillies do tend to be secretive too. But not necessarily with
to that
kids.
degree, yeah. Was it Pop's mother or grandmother that Dad would always tell me was like half Cherokee or something?
Henry's mother.
Henry
Barnett's mother was half Cherokee. She was, half Indian, which I don't see what that would be except Cherokee in our area. And probably I didn't know about it. And I always wanted to be an Indian. And then some girl at school told me that she was part Cherokee. And so the next time I saw Grandma, so I asked her, I said, "Are we part Cherokee? Are we part Indian?" And she said, "Yeah, your Granny Barnett was an Indian."
Interesting. Because, except for that, I don't think I've ever heard of Cherokee in our family.
Well, so we have that on the Barnett side. The Hale side, Zode was a Hale, Hale. And the Hale side, all those people are blondes and redheads, just about.
Oh,
So I figure that they must not be.
and never
It must be all on the Barnett side.
There was never any indication of anything like that on the Mullins side, or.
Well, we didn't know about it, but then one of Mama's cousins, Letha, her first cousin, Granddaddy Mullins' relative,
Yeah.
did some ancestral study and some genealogy, and she found some Native American blood ancestors.
Interesting.
And she also found a Mullins from Beach Creek in the 1700s.
Oh, wow. So they've been there for a long time.
And that person was named Flower Mullins. And Flower
Interesting.
was I should go this way. Flower was the name of one of Granddaddy's brothers that died.
Oh.
I never knew Flower, but I knew about him.
Interesting. A man named Flower.
And that has got to be our ancestor.
Yeah, wow.
That's got to be a family name.
So they've been in that area for a long time.
Beach Creek is also where Grandma Zode's relatives live. I mean, everybody in Beach Creek just almost was related to us when I was growing up.
Oh, wow.
And so somebody found a record from the 1700s, I think, but anyhow from a couple of hundred years ago, of a Barnett and a Mullins getting married.
Oh, my God. That is funny.
And I told Daniel.
Oh, my gosh. That's funny. Wow.
And he turned white. He looked at me. He looked me right in the eye and he begged me. He said, please don't tell DeForest.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, goodness.
Don't tell him I told you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh, that's funny, though. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's hilarious.
It was like all those stories about hillbillies they're talking about
Right,
us.
yeah. Don't want to fan the flames, right? Oh, my goodness. Wow.
And I told him, I said, there's nothing to be ashamed of. Darwin married his first cousin, Charles Darwin.
Oh, wow. That is wild, though, I must say. To think they stayed in the same area for all those years, too.
Yeah. That's what hillbillies do, and that's what Native Americans do.
Yeah, true. The Cherokee always did a little bit of traveling, though.
Oh, yeah, they traveled to make warfare.
You know, I guess if Pop's dad's mom was half Cherokee or Cherokee, I guess she would have had to have been descended from the Cherokee people that managed to hide when the Trail of Tears
Exactly. Those are our ancestors, the ones that hid out.
Right,
and escaped the Trail of Tears.
You know, I've heard that a lot of the little...
And you know what that means?
Mm-hmm. Oh.
Ancestral trauma.
Oh, yeah. You know, I've heard that a lot of the shallow, like, caves and stuff that are in the Smokies and around here are places where they hid back when that happened.
I'm sure, yeah. Well, a lot of the Cherokee had intermarried with the settlers.
Yeah. You know, I heard that...
And so people would hide them. And
right.
back in the hills and hollers, people believe that what you do is your own business.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't believe in interfering with each other's lives.
Right.
And so people would have kept their mouths shut when, the officials came around looking for...
Yes, because even still, there is a huge hatred of authority figures out here.
And I've wondered if Pop's reluctance to talk about ancestors is because that's been going on since the Trail of Tears. That people
Right.
wouldn't talk about it because it was dangerous.
Heck, even one of the guys I worked with at the Knoxville Art Museum grew up in, I guess in like the 70s and 80s. He grew up in I guess the 80s and 90s, actually. He wasn't that old. But he grew up in a really rural area somewhere, just like an hour outside Knoxville. And even in the 80s and 90s, he would say that, every time the cops did have to go there and investigate something, like nobody would ever even look at them or talk to them or, and...
Let them on their land.
Right, yeah, or let them on their land, yeah. And in fact, he said they would threaten the cops, when they tried to come.
They're brave.
Mm-hmm.
Those people are brave, and they'll stand up for their right. Well, I'll tell you a story that Pop told me about Hassie, Grandma's sister. Hassie's son, I think it was Guy, but I'm not sure. But if you ever go to the wall in Washington for the Vietnam veterans.
Oh, right. That I know the monument you're
look
talking
for
about.
Crawford. And I think it's either Guy or Rob Crawford. And his name's on it. I looked it up when I went there. That was before I forgot his name.
Oh, wow.
Which one? I forgot which one it was. Anyhow.
Did he die in the war?
Yeah.
Oh, whoa. Wow.
That's why he's not on the wall.
Right.
You're not on the wall unless you die.
If you live through it, oh, wow.
But, so anyhow, they send officers to come and tell you that your relative has died in the war.
Right.
And they came to Hassie's door to tell her. And they said, you can be, your son died honorably, fighting for his country, and you can be proud of him. And she looked at him and said, I was proud of him before y'all got your hands on him.
I don't blame her. Wow. I always wondered what kind of stuff William saw in World War II.
William was in the liberation of one of the really bad concentration
camps. That's what Dad said.
I think it was Auschwitz.
Oh, yeah, that's what Dad said. I think Dad said he never would talk about it, though. I don't blame him, of course.
And then it was very traumatic for him. Very traumatic.
I'll bet.
And then